Hi, this is Russell Glasser, host of the Atheist Experience.
For whatever
You know, the
reason.
Atheist Experience is made possible by volunteers and the generous support of viewers like you. If the promotion of positive atheist culture and separation of church and state are values that you hold, please consider contributing by becoming an ACA member or visiting our product page at evolvefish.com under the Partner tab. Thank you.
Okay, because hey, how everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. We're live, only what I can see on my screen here is an advertisement for something else, so I can't tell what's going on. I didn't see any intro. How you doing? I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Tracie Harris.
Hello.
Woohoo! So we're trying to get the technical stuff sorted, and they're queuing up calls. It's a live public access show sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin out of Austin, Texas, every Sunday from 4:30 to 5:30-ish, depending on how we feel.
Yeah.
We are working on telephone solutions, but for right now, you can contact the show through Skype. So you can go to atheist-experience.com, and at the top of the page, there's instructions. The Skype account is The Atheist Experience, all one word, no spaces. And you can message that Skype address, don't call it. And when you message it, you'll talk to the call screener, and they'll get it set up and get us a list of people to talk to. But we're going to start off. Tracie, you had some points you wanted to make.
Yeah, it's actually just a small topic. I've been reading Bulfinch's Mythology, which is just like a big collection of mythological works. It's an older book, and I picked up a copy a while back and finally just, sat down and started reading from page 1 on. And so the other night I read a story and I just kind of laughed because I was like, well, what does this sound like, right? And so this is part of a story that deals with Agamemnon, who is a Greek character. He's one of those characters that's sort of myth/legend, you know what I mean? And so it says, after 2 years of preparation, the Greek fleet and army assembled in the port of Aulis in Boeotia. Here, Agamemnon, in hunting, killed a stag which was sacred to Diana, who's a goddess in the Greek pantheon. So the goddess, in return, visited the army with pestilence and produced a calm which prevented the ships from leaving the port. Calchas, the soothsayer, thereupon announced that the wrath of the virgin goddess could only be appeased by the sacrifice of a virgin on her altar, and that none other but the daughter of the offender would be acceptable. Agamemnon, however reluctant, yielded his consent, and the maiden, Iphigenia, was sent for under the pretense that she was to be married to Achilles. When she was about to be sacrificed, the goddess relented and snatched her away, leaving a hind in her place, and Iphigenia, enveloped in a cloud, was carried to Taurus, where Diana made her priestess of her temple. So I read this story and I immediately thought of Abraham and Isaac. That here is this father who has to sacrifice his daughter. This goddess says that's what's required, and then at the last minute she stops it and pulls the girl away, and then she replaces her with a hind, whereas, in the Abraham and Isaac story, that he's replaced by a ram. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I just did a little bit of research on it, and it turned out that early references to Agamemnon date back to about the 14th century. In Hittite literature. But as far as this particular story, I don't know that it goes back that far, but it did remind me of the binding of Isaac, and that's listed in Genesis, and the book of Genesis dates to somewhere around the 5th or 6th century BCE, and that doesn't mean that that's when the story dates to.
Sure.
But those are, recorded instances of expressing those stories. But they just had such an interesting similarity. And I want to point out that it's very important to note that similarities in mythology may or may not be evidence of prior cultural connections. So you can't just assume that they are. Sometimes there's just common realities about being human in a society, and those things are reflected in very similar stories that can crop up independently. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm suggesting that these are somehow culturally related. I haven't looked into it, so I have no idea. But I did invite people at the blog, if they want to do some research on it and post further information, to go ahead and do that. It just seemed like an interesting little, I was not familiar with this particular myth.
There's a lot of stories like that people will often tie together, and we see this a lot with some versions of the Jesus mythicist crowd, where there's this claim that, oh, the Jesus story is merely a copying of this one or this one and this one, which I think is a bit overreaching. I don't see that it's merely that. Some aspects certainly could be. But for most of these stories, it doesn't surprise me that there are similar themes, because we're talking about human beings with similar thought processes trying to address certain issues. Hey, if you want to come up with a mythology or a narrative that describes the creation or this particular moral, lesson that you're trying to convey, I find it completely unsurprising that the stories would be similar.
Right. That you would never find like similar stories in any culture would be, very weird. Like if people live on a river, it would be odd to never have a flood story.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was interesting is that both of these tales have alternate endings where the subject is actually killed. So
now we're talking something that correlates a little more with Jephthah in the Bible, where he promises, hey, God, if you let me win this war, I'll sacrifice the first thing that comes out of my house, and it's his daughter. And well,
on the Abraham and Isaac's side, they postulated that maybe the actual killing was too offensive, or became too offensive, or not in vogue, and so it was altered to say that the hand was stayed. Like I said, I didn't go and research a ton on this particular myth. I just found it curious, not even curious, but just kind of interesting and funny that it reminded me so much of the other tale.
All right.
That was it. That was my.
So
my
we'll go
topic.
ahead and queue up Derek in Kansas City, and while we're waiting on that,
I did have one other little
go right
thing.
ahead.
Just want to say, I don't know your last name. I just wanted to say thank you. It was nice meeting you, and I finally did get to open it, and it's very clever and very beautiful, and so I appreciate the thought behind it.
I don't know if I didn't bother to check to see what the upcoming schedule was, or if there was some event I was supposed to promote or anything else. We were busy trying to get ready just to do the show. But this transition to the Atheist Community of Austin building, and I'll keep talking about this when I'm on. It's a work in progress. We're back to 3 cameras. We've got a little screen so we can see what's going on. We've got part of the audio stuff sorted out, and we'll be working to get the call stuff. The Skype address is at the bottom of the screen. It's also at the website, atheist-experience.com. Hey, Derek, you there?
Hello.
Hi.
All right. I am 15, and your show has really kind of made a pretty big impact on my life, but I'm not going to go into that right now. I kind of wanted to call about the fact that I'm pretty much the only atheist in my, group at all. So basically my whole family is fundamentalist Christians, and I go to a Christian school, so everybody there is Christian, of course, and I'm pretty much the only atheist. So I was wondering for maybe some ways to argue my points and maybe kind of have people respect me a little bit more for my beliefs and things.
Well, what kind of discussions do you tend to get into?
And are you out? Did I miss that part? Are you out to your family?
To my dad and my sister. My dad did the whole "I'm disappointed in you" thing. So but basically, I'm out to a lot of people at the school. So
yeah, I think I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in your dad, but I don't fault him. One of the things to remember is, people are most of the time just talking about what they sincerely believe, and some of them haven't looked into it in as great a detail as others. It may be that they have what they think is a really good reason, but when you get a response that's just like, "Oh, I'm disappointed in you," I think it's rather than trying to argue about the facts of whether or not there's a God, it might be worthwhile to discuss, the interpersonal relationship stuff that's going on, to say, I'm sorry that you're disappointed in me. All I did was use my brain to evaluate this and came to a different conclusion. It didn't make me, necessarily think any less of you. I mean, what would it be like to say, hey, I'm disappointed in you that you believe in these myths and fairy tales that I don't believe in.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we pretty much, we were in a car, and he was talking about, all the stuff, like, with a bunch of people, like, being gay and how I didn't like that. And so I, of course, wasn't going to take that, so I kind of argued with him on that. And then we had a 4-hour discussion on a bunch of different things. And it, of course, ended with the I'm disappointed with you. And he keeps trying to kind of, like, give me evidence for why there is a God. Like, one of his friends is in Guatemala right now as a missionary, and they've been, like, supposedly healing people a whole bunch who have had, like, specific ailments. So
it's amazing to me how those stories always come from the missionaries themselves or somebody who knows a missionary, and none of them seem to be written up in any scientific journals anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, I mean, his response to that would be that science is trying to destroy Christianity, of course.
Why? Lots of scientists are Christians.
Yeah, I know. Their
That doesn't
view
even
on
make
things
sense.
is that science is just trying to disprove God. And
Even
so
though
any evidence,
most scientists are theistic.
Yeah, and even though science
Interesting.
by definition couldn't disprove God.
Yeah.
it can't disprove God. But I mean, his thing is science is just trying to disprove God, and that pretty much everyone, or not everyone exactly, but a lot of people in science are they just hate God, so they've been trying to disprove him, and that's his stance on atheists.
Yeah.
That they just hate him, and so.
Yeah, it's weird, this idea that
I don't really know of any research on the existence of God that's been put out in a scientific journal to disprove it. I mean, there's some
Exactly.
prayer studies and efficacy studies on things like that, but
I mean, the Templeton Foundation's been trying to scientifically prove God for years and has failed every single time. Yeah. So there are definitely some scientists on your dad's side of things who have a brilliant track record of consistently failing to demonstrate the truth of what they believe.
Well, exactly, and I mean, I found it frustrating that people can believe in things that not exactly aren't backed up by evidence, because, of course, that gets into the whole argument of, oh, you can't have faith in anything. But just the fact that people can so blindly follow something as to not even look at any evidence against it is just kind of frustrating to me.
Yeah, and the kind of dismissal. They're mad at God, they hate God, So not only is your dad's position that he's right, and that he may view that he can't possibly be wrong, but that the scientific community is involved in some sort of conspiracy, and he's determined that it's because they hate God or are mad at God. So your dad's a mind reader who has discerned the motivations of people who disagree with him, and that's the foundation of his argument. If anybody were to come to him and say, well, it turns out that Zeus is the true God, and you're just denying Zeus because you're mad at him, I wonder, what kind of reaction that would get.
Well, I mean, he'd say that Zeus isn't real, I mean, of course, because any other religion, of course, is wrong, and the only true religion is Christianity, and all the other people are crazy. So.
I know how he feels. I used to actually agree with him.
Yeah.
And then the thing that changed it in part for me was realizing that I would feel the same way if I were part of another religion, that there was from an outsider's perspective, how do you tell which of these religious claims, if any, are actually correct? And the first thing you have to do is actually care more about whether or not your belief is true or likely to be true than whether or not it's comforting or whether or not you want to sit there and express a confidence level that you can't demonstrate.
Yeah, and another another topic that I'm not going to run the call out too long, but another topic that we ran into when we were arguing about it was that God is always right and everything He does is just.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, I love it because there is no demarcation of what is moral and what is not. Absolutely anything you can describe, no matter how horrendous, is moral as long as God endorses it.
Well, yeah, and I was like, well, so might is right, and he was like, well, yeah, when it comes to God.
Oh. It's not, might isn't right in other circumstances, but it's right when it comes to God. By definition, that's special pleading. It's a logical fallacy.
Yep. And like, I try to bring up a lot of the stories, honestly, that were in the Bible. Like, I think it's Ezekiel where the 42 children make fun of one of the prophets for being bald.
Yeah,
and,
go up to a bald head. It's the Elisha.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Elisha. Yep. And so basically God sends down 2 bears.
It doesn't say that.
Oh.
So here's the thing, and this is, I'll credit Ray Comfort with this. So these 42 youths, which may mean children or it may mean a gang, I don't care if they were Crips or Bloods, they curse Elisha, and he curses them in the name of the Lord, and then 2 she-bears come forward and rip those 42 kids apart. The Bible doesn't say that God sent the she-bears, and Ray Comfort said that it could just be a coincidence, but he's an idiot when it comes to apologetics, because the only reason for including the story is to demonstrate the power of God and what He's willing to do to protect His special people. This is my prophet, don't you mock my prophet or this will happen to you. So your view of it is right. Nobody in their right mind, other than perhaps Ray Comfort, and the right mind thing is in question, would actually argue that the story of the bears could be a coincidence, because then there's no reason to include it. It'd be like, hey, these 42 kids, they cursed Elisha, and then for no apparent reason, a comet came down and landed on their heads. Yeah,
well, and not only that, but just that argument can be flipped on, anyone who makes it, because, you could argue that everything that happens in the Bible is coincidence, if you want to use that.
Yep.
So, I don't know. It's kind of frustrating, and there's no real way to argue with any of them, because they're so set in their beliefs that there's no way.
I find the best thing. So you could argue about doctrine if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. You probably won't get very far, because odds are they probably don't know that much about the specific stories, and they may not know that much about the foundation of their version of the religion, or how to argue about doctrine. You could then move it a step back and have conversations in a more abstract sense about, is there a God? But I don't think that any of those are going to be useful for your situation. I think the better thing to do is to set the religion aside completely and talk about how do we go about figuring out how any claim is true? How do we figure out whether or not we're reasonable in accepting any claim? And then show how, when this is applied to his religion, he's okay with using a different method, a method that he wouldn't accept under any other circumstances. Showing that he's engaging in this sort of cognitive dissonance where I'm willing to use one set of rules and one set of, one type of epistemology to evaluate claim A, and a completely separate set of rules for God, exposes, the fallacy in his thinking.
Mm. And of course, any argument with theists is full of fallacies, but it's kind of frustrating to me, and it's kind of funny because I'm in 10th grade right now, and learning a lot of stuff about biology and microbiology and stuff, so yeah. It's been kind of funny getting the theist view from it, of creation, and then I've been going on Talk Origins, and kind of tracing it along with that.
Yeah, you're set. I don't think you really need much of our help. If you're looking at Talk Origins for information, the one thing is, I'm disappointed in you, is nowhere near the worst reaction that we've heard of from people when they've been outed to their parents.
Their houses. That happens all the time as far as being a Muslim goes. So.
Yeah. So, I think just, be yourself, be a decent person. confound their expectations of what it means for somebody to be an atheist, so that they are constantly in a state of question. Hey, wait a minute, this person, my son here doesn't believe in a God, and yet he keeps doing moral things. He seems to be a decent person. He is honest. He cares about truth. He's trying to come up with the best ways to look at the world. What is it that's so special about him? It's the kind of a flip of what they end up doing, living your life by example.
And something that really tore the foundations out from under me was when I met some people who started to tell me about how the Bible was put together. It was completely different than, they'd never actually told me how it was put together in church, and I never thought about the idea that I believed that this was the Word of God, and we talked about this book and studied this book all the time, and there was never any sort of realistic history lesson on, the history of the Bible and how it was actually compiled.
40 people wrote it, and it was inspired by the Word of God is good enough for too many people.
Right, but when you start looking into that to see, it's like, how did the books that are in there now end up being the books that are in there now? It starts to be more than 40 people involved. It builds up real quickly how many people were involved in trying to ultimately come up with this book. And that was something that, to me, part of what impacted me was the story itself, but the other thing that really struck me like a lightning bolt was the fact that we never talked about it in church, that this was our holy book and we never discussed how it was put together.
What's even scarier is that when you dig through the process of canonization, you might make an argument that it was one person, that Athanasius basically put out his Easter encyclical and included a list of the books that he considered to be canon based on what other churches were using. So, it was like, this is popular in this area, this is popular in this area. The Shepherd of Hermas isn't very popular, so we're not going to do it, or the Apocalypse of Peter. And so Athanasius of Rome puts out his, and then it just kind of becomes the de facto standard. This is, our Bible. And then, of course, it's, authenticated and made official by committees who ousted anybody who didn't agree with them.
Yeah. So. And they kept changing their minds.
Oh, well, that happens all the time. The whole changing minds thing.
Yeah, they'll change their mind on everything except for the, is there a God and am I right?
But it's like, this book is in, this book is out. No, this book is back in. Yeah. It's like, who's deciding these things? Because I just kind of, I guess, thought that the way I had envisioned it was that. What's funny is there was a woman that I talked to at my church when I was leaving, and she said something about, well, they were written by the apostles, but they weren't all written by, they're not even all claimed to be written by apostles. Some of them claim authorship that isn't apostolic. So even she was confused, and it's like we didn't know anything. We were so confused about why did we believe this book was inspired by God? Why did we believe apostles or anybody else wrote it? Why? It's just like we were told some of these things, and then other things we just sort of patched it together in our own heads, and we all came up with our own story. And it just, the way it's portrayed, they almost make it sound like the apostles and other church leaders wrote these things, and then the churches very carefully collected them and preserved them and put them together as, everyone understood these were the inspired books and blah, blah, blah. And then it was like this from the first century down. And it's like, no, that is not at all how that happened.
There's a really good book on the subject. Bart Ehrman has a book called Lost Christianities. And it goes through a lot of what was going on. There may still be a website. There used to be a website called earlychristianwritings.com where it will go through the best sourced information about the authorship of books that are in the New Testament and the books that didn't make it in as well. I remember, I was in Australia arguing with a street preacher, and I was pulled aside by this guy who was with the group of preachers, but he wasn't a preacher himself. And we had a conversation that covered the map. And at one point, he talked about the Gospels, and he was convinced that they were written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which is, I don't even know how anybody still thinks that, because you can open up most modern Bibles. Like if you've got an NIV, which is one reason I think some people hate the NIV, you open it up and the cover page for Matthew says, the authorship of Matthew is unknown. The name was attributed by the early church and is a matter of tradition. So you don't know who wrote it. But you also know that it almost certainly wasn't Matthew.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to leave y'all with one last little thing here, and just so you can get on to other callers. Just the the easiness of control that pastors and religious leaders have over the followers of their religion is honestly disgusting to me. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave y'all to other callers.
All right, thanks,
Okay.
Derek.
All right.
We'll go ahead and get Kitty queued up next. And that thing about control.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I like to caution people about because they'll take that and run with it and say that the purpose of religion
yeah.
is to control people, or that religions exist merely to control people. And these are all statements that I find overly broad.
Yeah.
It's true that many churches exercise varying degrees of control over the people who are in there, but it's a willing control. These are sincere believers. I don't think the preachers, or even all the way up to the Pope, it's not like there's some, not some top-down process where it's like, here's how we can control the people. I think that they just the ones that were best at providing people comfort and providing instruction to guide people, because thinking about morality and stuff is hard. It's hard work. And the ones that were the best at doing that are the ones that continued to thrive.
Yeah, and a lot of religion isn't like the sort of hierarchical structure that we think of. Some is like tribal and deals with maybe a handful of people where it's very, very egalitarian in their culture and they're not exercising control over people with it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So we've got Kitty in Perth. I was in Perth not long ago. How are you?
Hi, good. Nice to see you. Well, chat to you anyway. I actually met you when you were in Perth, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, good. Well, then good to hear from you again.
Okay, so my question. I have a younger brother, an adult younger brother, who is a drug addict, and he went to rehab not long ago, and he came back this very angry Christian, and he used to be, I don't know, kind of skeptical, not exactly religious anyway, but now he's just a really angry Christian, and I'm not entirely sure how I can talk to him anymore.
How long has he been out?
About a month or two.
Okay.
And when you say angry Christian, can you give kind of an example? Because a lot of different images come to mind.
Well, he was always a very angry person, but it's like he's turned his anger towards religion. So he will angrily tell you why other Christians are wrong, and he'll angrily tell you why his particular brand of Christianity is accurate, and he's very fundamentalist as well. I don't know if he's like a creationist or anything, but
So gays are bad.
yeah. Well, no, actually,
He's cool with
okay
gay.
with
Okay.
yes, and he's
All right.
very angry about how other Christians aren't.
Okay. Well, that's a weird
Has
sort
he
of
has he
twist.
actually read the Bible? Because the Bible's pretty anti-gay.
Yeah, he's currently reading it a lot. It's like he's got this daily Bible study. Part of his rehab is that he's not allowed to read any nonfiction, so he's reading the Bible and C.S. Lewis books.
Yeah, that's a little curious, but okay.
Yeah.
So I'm taking he went to some sort of religious kind of rehab.
Yeah, my parents set it up, and they're very fundamentalist.
Are they happy with this result?
Yes, they're very happy.
Okay. All right.
I've never heard of this. You can't read any nonfiction.
I don't know what their deal is. I mean, they were all kind of weird and proprietary. I did have a friend that was not that religious that went into a drug facility like that. It was Pentecostal. And
Yeah.
when he said when he was first put in there, it really freaked him out. He felt extremely isolated. He couldn't really reach out to anybody and family, and he was just kind of locked in this facility, and these Pentecostals were doing all these weird, speaking in tongues and having these odd Bible things that he'd never, he understood church, but this was nothing like, he'd never seen Pentecostal. And so he flipped out, and after a while, like he ran away from the facility and begged his parents not to put him back in, but they did. And then he went to back into the facility, and he started participating. And when he started to participate, he really got into it. And then when he got out, he was, completely zealous for Pentecostalism and freaked out, thinking his parents were the wrong sort of Christians and telling them they were going to go to hell. And unlike your situation, his parents were like, "What have we done?" But because he came out kind of a different brand of Christian that condemned them. But after a while, for him, it just wore off. And then he was just like, man, that just messed with my head. Like, I'm glad I'm not out of it anymore. But I don't know, with your brother, it might be that this may wear off a little in time. But I'm not sure if your parents are supportive of it, if it's, I don't know. But yeah, I can see why you're concerned.
I'm still confused about so are they saying the Bible is fiction and that's why he can read it?
No, the Bible's non-fiction according to them. He's not allowed to read any fictional books because it offers an escape or something like that, and he has to remain in real life.
Yeah, and your religion really grounds you in reality.
Yeah, apparently.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah,
Well, that
things
changes
have been
things.
pretty-
Yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking if you're not allowed to read nonfiction, okay, you're not allowed to read fiction. I think the first question would be, how did you demonstrate that the Bible isn't fiction? I mean, because
I haven't asked him that.
yeah,
Oh, you did, or you're going to?
I haven't. No,
okay.
I might want to ask him that though.
and there's a number of people who would consider it fiction, or at least
yeah.
mostly fiction. There are certainly parts of it that are historical nonfiction, or at least considered that. But when you start talking about, magical beings and miracles and salvation to other wonderful places, I think there needs to be a stronger demonstration. But none of that has anything to do with your brother's situation. I'm with Tracie in that sometimes this tends to wane, and I can't think of anything much better than just be a decent to your brother, interact with him as much as you can actually stand to, and be honest and saying, I'd like to know why you believe these certain things, and more importantly, whether or not you think somebody else should. I mean, does he look down on you for not? I mean, if he's criticizing other Christians for like false doctrine, how does he view you?
I don't know.
Does he know you're atheist?
He knows I'm an atheist.
Okay.
My whole family knows. They don't like it, but they know. So.
How old is he about?
21.
Okay, all right. Has he talked to anybody about what they actually did to him in that facility? Like how he was treated?
I don't think so. He has some friends that he confides in, but he hasn't really said much to them.
I mean, that might be interesting too, to learn more about that with him.
Yeah.
So
The only thing I know for certain is that for the first few weeks while he was in there, he wasn't allowed any contact with anybody else. So he was kind of extremely cut off from everybody else for.
That's
however
kind
many
of
weeks it
typical
was.
even outside of religious stuff. I'll say this. I understand your concern. I can definitely empathize, and I hope the situation gets better. I've had lots of arguments with people about things like Alcoholics Anonymous and Narconon and other things. And my position is that generally, if it works and gets them to where they're no longer dependent on substances, I think it's an improvement, but it may not be a huge improvement if it turns them into a terrible human being that is poisoned in some other way, with a particular religious doctrine that is also potentially harmful. I think and I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes a little bit. If I had a family member who had a drug abuse problem and they went in, rehabbed, came out, and were super gung-ho religious, I think I would probably be very happy that they were no longer abusing drugs. And while I might be upset or sad about their particular religious views, until there's a reason to think that there's something more dangerous about what they believe than what they were doing before, I think I would kind of just maybe let it ride its course and be as supportive as I can, while still being honest about the fact that I don't share their religious views.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And the advice is worth exactly what you paid for it.
Yeah.
I could be
But, I
completely
mean,
wrong.
you were there. I guess you know a little bit about what life was like before he went in there. So I mean, are you in agreement that he was somebody that needed treatment?
Oh, he definitely needed treatment.
Okay. Well, then that definitely is a factor to consider.
Yeah. Because I mean, I don't want him to go back to the way he was before either.
It may be that you mentioned that he was angry before and he's angry now. It may be that what he also needs is some anger management
Yeah.
training along with it, which will perhaps resolve both issues.
Yeah, because Jesus was down on, even though he got mad a few times, he preached against anger a little. So.
Yeah, but that just makes him a hypocrite. Anyway, Kitty, I appreciate the call. And since they had you labeled as John from London, I guess we'll go ahead and take John from London next. But
Okay. Thank you, Matt and Tracy.
Thank you.
yeah, it's a difficult situation kind of dealing with that. There are, by the way, secular organizations. There's Secular Sobriety, SOS, and others that deal with substance abuse problems from a purely secular standpoint. My frustration comes from the kind of de facto leaning we have towards allowing religious institutions to operate as counselors. Yes, we'll be right with you, John. As counselors and other positions that they may not be qualified to do those roles.
Well, there's some people that don't trust secular counseling.
Yeah. Hey, John in London, thanks for waiting.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's lovely to talk to you both. I've seen quite a few of your videos on YouTube.
There's a few out there.
Yeah, they're very good. I enjoy listening to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a bit about evolution and the origins of life.
Okay.
Yeah, so first of all, life coming about by chance or life coming about by intelligent design. So basically, there's only one truth, and beliefs count for nothing. So one of those conclusions is the truth, and one of them is incorrect.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think those are probably the only two possibilities. One, that it did not happen by intelligent design, and the other, that it did happen by intelligent design. Those are the only two possibilities. One of them is true, and what you believe about it doesn't impact which one is true at all. I'm with you.
Yeah, okay. So I'm on the side of intelligent design, leading to there being God. But on the side of life coming about by chance.
See, phrasing it that way. That's why I phrased it as, it either came about by intelligent design, or it came about without intelligent design, without any intelligent intervention. I don't know that I'm as keen to characterize that as chance, because the perception is like stuff just happened with no rhyme or reason. The universe is ordered and follows rules. And chemistry is the foundation of life, and chemicals interact in certain ways that aren't chance. Maybe chance as to how any two chemicals came in contact, but the interactions between them aren't chance.
Okay, well, it depends. I presume it depends on how far you want to go back. So, I mean, the universe in so far as the physical realm, I understand science is that it came about from energy. So cause and effect. I mean, I don't mind getting into the something from nothing a little bit, because I'm actually on your side with all of that. I seem to agree with most of what you say with the something from nothing. But my point is the cause and the effect. So I would say everything is designed. So if you want to say lightning or crystals or chemicals or some type of natural process, I would say that all of that is designed.
And why would you say that?
Based on an observation would be my conclusion would be that it's intelligent design. So, but just like the other side of it would be chance. So my conclusion is that it's intelligent design.
I didn't ask what the conclusion was. We've heard the conclusion. I was asking why. Why would you reach that conclusion that everything is designed?
Okay, well, to use all of this in an illustration, if that's all right, I'll try and just be brief. A flat bit of rock in a desert island, you could say the natural processes of rain hitting it, lightning, chemicals and crystals, and given enough time, billions of years, your name, Matthew, could appear on it by pure chance. And that would be a conclusion, because there would be no science or observation to back that up to say proof, but there would be the natural processes.
Wait, can I just insert something here? That same example that you just gave, right? According to you, though, even if it just spattered and made like holes in the rock, that would be designed, just like if it spelled Matt. You said everything was designed, right?
Yeah, okay, well, all right, I would say the rain is designed and the lightning is designed.
Right, but to you, a rock that just has like rivers and holes and anything carved out of anything from rain is the same as if it spelled out Matt Dillahunty on it. It would be the same to you. You're saying they're the same thing.
Yeah, there are results of certain things that have been put into place. So natural processes that have been put into place. Yes, the water will, given enough time, gradually dent the rock as it flows over it. I don't dispute that, but I'm saying that something that has been specifically, like in the form of life, I would say that there's a chasm between non-living matter and living matter.
What is it?
Well, that living matter is actually amino acids that form 3D protein printers that self-replicate, and that we as intelligent beings, we cannot even copy that design and actually make a 3D protein printer out of amino acids.
Now, wait, before you go on, you do agree that just because people can't do something doesn't mean that that a God has to have done it, correct?
In fact, the fact that we can't do something decreases the likelihood of intelligent design. Because if an intelligence couldn't copy something, then it may be the case that this isn't possible via intelligence.
Or it means that you need more intelligence.
Yeah, sure, I agree. And you've reached the conclusion that the best answer is that you need more intelligence and that this intelligence existed. I'm still wondering why. Because as Tracie pointed out, when you say everything's designed, then you want to start to draw distinctions between living things and non-living things. You think they're both designed.
Right. So there's nothing special about life. In your book, a grain of sand on the beach is just as amazing as a human brain. They're both evidence of design.
Well, I wouldn't put them on the same level, but I would say, yeah, they're both designed insofar as if we were given some energy, we couldn't turn it into a grain of sand. So
I don't know why you keep saying if we. It's like, so what if people can't do something? That to me means nothing in this discussion. Like, chimpanzees can't do things. I don't think it means
can't
it
requires
requires
a
a
book,
God.
but that doesn't mean that
It's
we'll go back to the cause and effect. So to have the physical realm, you do need energy. So the something from nothing, and also cause and effect. So you have to, in order to have physical, how it is and finely tuned. I don't want to get too much into that, but to get the energy into the physical, it wouldn't do that. That's what I'm saying. I'm presuming.
Okay, I don't care about presumptions. Can we agree that the natural world exists?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
And so there are things that happen in the natural world. Is there anything that happens in the natural world that isn't the result of intelligent design?
No.
Okay, then I'm sorry, but I don't think that I'm actually interested in having the conversation, because you're basically saying that it's all the same and there's no way to tell the difference. and that you've reached the conclusion that it must be intelligent design, I don't see how you can have any mechanism or any way to demonstrate this, because if we agree that the natural world exists, you and I disagree on whether or not the supernatural world exists. And so I'm sitting here saying the natural world exists and I'm observing it. And if in fact the supernatural exists, the time to believe it is after it's been demonstrated to be real. And you seem to be saying, no, the time to believe it is now, even though I can't offer anything other than my suppositions.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
Okay.
both of our conclusions have no proof.
No. We haven't. So my conclusion is not there is no supernatural realm. My conclusion is not there is no natural or intelligent design involved in the origin of the universe or life. My conclusion is that I don't see evidence or reason to conclude that either of those are in fact true. This is the issue with science. Science doesn't claim that the supernatural doesn't exist. Science says we can't investigate supernatural existence or causation, so we don't get to include those answers until we have a mechanism by which we can investigate the supernatural and reach a conclusion. Because what's happened here is as soon as you get to appeal to things that you can't demonstrate, they all become equal. So the Christian God, the Muslim God, universe creating pixies, they are all unfalsifiable propositions that are all sufficient to explain, but then there's been no demonstration that they are necessary to explain.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that.
You don't, though. You don't, because you've concluded intelligent design.
Yeah, okay, so I've concluded at this point, I would agree with you that I've concluded intelligent design just by sheer, without any proof. I think that's what we're talking about.
And why would you do that? Would you accept any other conclusion that somebody came to you with without any sort of proof?
Yeah, but I used to accept without any proof that it was all by pure chance as well.
Okay, so you used to think poorly, and you still think poorly, but you reached a different conclusion. I'm asking not what you used to do. I'm saying if somebody came to you with an alternate proposition to what you believe, and they had no more proof than you did, would you accept their proposition, or would you stick with what you've got?
Yeah, I want proof.
Okay, so why is it you don't want proof for what you currently believe?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so why would you believe what you currently believe when you want proof for it but don't have it?
I have got proof.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the proof?
Yeah, the proof is the fulfilled prophecy found in the Bible. That is the proof.
Okay, so we started a call, going to talk about evolution and the origin of life, then we get to the origin of everything, and then after going through and saying that it's just a supposition that you
Prophecy.
conclude intelligent design, now you're talking about fulfilled prophecy. Normally I would just end it at this point because I'm actually having difficulty believing that you're sincere, but let's say for a second that I have made a prediction and it comes true. Okay?
Yeah.
How did I do that?
Well, the only way you could possibly, you could guess. I mean,
Okay.
there's that.
I might have guessed. That's one
one way,
possibility.
yeah.
Yeah. What else?
If you was unique in that you had the ability to foresee the future,
Sure. If I was able to foresee the future, yep, that's another one.
yeah, or I can't see any others really.
Well, I could be, as I am, a magician, so I've deceived you in some way into thinking I predicted the future when I didn't.
Yeah, all right, but that,
Okay.
yeah, but that,
So there's
Yeah.
there's three possibilities. Now, of those three, do you have good enough information to conclude that I'm actually able to see and predict the future yet?
yeah, well, I would have to do the research on whatever
Sure.
you said, but
I'm just saying, there's three possibilities. We would have to rule two of them out in order to confirm that I can, in fact, see and predict the future. But let's assume that I can. Let's assume that you've reached the conclusion that I can see and predict the future. How am I able to do that? Could I have a time machine?
Yeah, well, I suppose I don't fully understand it from my point of view. I'm saying that God has got the ability to look into the future.
I don't care what God's ability is.
Right, but what Matt's trying to get
you're-
you to understand is that if you don't know how someone does something, then you're guessing.
See, you're actually begging the question by saying,
Well,
oh, God can do this. I'm saying if I've made a prediction, one of the possibilities is that I can see the future. Now let's go ahead and assume that it's true that I can see the future. And this is going to be directly analogous to the prophecies that you think came true, which I would dispute all day long anyway. But I can see the future. It could be because I have a time machine. It could be because some other intelligence, alien or otherwise, is able to see the future in a way in which they convey information to me. Or it could be some supernatural ability. So there's two natural propositions, which may or may not be possible, and a supernatural proposition, which may or may not be possible. Not only have you concluded that what you perceive as answered prophecy is actually caused by someone being able to see the future, you have then concluded that their ability to see the future is necessarily supernatural, and that it correlates with the God that you accept. That's a whole lot of leaps with nothing as the foundation for it.
Now, I would say the process is slightly round the other way, that once I saw the fulfilled prophecy that being fulfilled,
Okay.
then I started to say, oh, okay, who is this person? Who is it, a human, an alien, or whatever it says it is?
That's not the other way around. That's exactly the process I'm talking about. So you saw fulfilled prophecies, and then you concluded that the best explanation for this was that there was some supernatural agent who was able to see the future.
Yeah, because the same text is
I'm asking
explain.
how did you reach the conclusion that the best explanation is that there's a supernatural being who can see the future? How did you rule out the other options?
Because first of all, the text, the communication via text is saying that is the result, but also
so it's true because it says it's true.
No, because
You do realize that there are claims of prophecy in other religions other than the one you accept.
yeah, I mean, there's Nostradamus as well.
Well,
Anyone can make.
But so people believe those things, and their foundation seems to be on similar footing as to yours. So why wouldn't you accept theirs?
I've looked into theirs as well, and the percentage is a lot lower.
Oh, so you accept that they're making correct predictions, and rather than worrying about it, you're just going to go with the one that you think has a higher perception. Could it be the case that you're mistaken about what you consider
I'm curious,
prophecy?
like which prophecy it is that's like got you so convinced.
Well, it's not just one; it's all of them.
What was the most amazing one? What was the one where you were just like, "Wow, this floors me! I can't believe this was predicted."
Yeah, I like 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 to 5, talking about the last days of this satanic system.
Yeah, okay, so this is going to be something really vague, right? I mean, go ahead, lay your quote on me. Quote that book.
It says about people being lovers of themselves, lovers of money, lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God.
And you think
this is
a
predicting
prophecy?
the future, like that it wasn't the case even at the time.
Yeah, but it's not just, that on its own, I would agree with you.
See, no. This is a problem because you look at 2 Timothy 3:2-3 or 2 Timothy 3, which is about the end days. You haven't concluded. You have no reason to conclude these are the end days. And people have been saying we're living in the end days every single day for as long as this stuff's been around.
For generations, yeah.
So
and they point to the same
and they point to
passage
the same verses,
and say
you're
they're
saying
talking about our time.
every time up until this generation, every previous time that somebody's pointed to 2 Timothy 3 and said, look, we're living in the end times, they've been wrong, but this time I'm right. I don't think you know how odds work when you start talking about the odds or the likelihood of a number of predictions coming true. Do you not think people used to be lovers of money,
I was
boastful,
just thinking
proud,
about like
etc.?
the Bulfinch's mythology, like all the stories about greed, and
Yeah.
it's like
I mean,
Midas.
if you do some research on end times prophecies and claims of this, what you'll find, not only have people been claiming this forever, but people have been pointing out how ridiculous it is to claim this forever, not only because they keep claiming it and it never happens, but also because these things just describe humanity. What's worse for your case is that there's a brilliant book by a guy named Steven Pinker called The Better Angels of Our Nature, which clearly, by actual data, shows that we are living in the best of all times by any measure, other than perhaps a measure of how many people like Jesus.
Yeah, but that's also part of the prophecy, that there would be these ones that would say this is a load of rubbish as well.
Yeah. Imagine that. So you think this the most amazing prophecy is one that can be applied at any time by anybody. And when people point out that it can be applied by any time and anybody, the prophecy says there will be people who point this out. Well, what if I sat here and said, John, I am God, and I know there are people who are going to tell you that's not true. Would you then believe I'm God?
Especially if you went out and told people and they said that's not true. It'd be like, how did he know that?
I mean, that's what you're talking about here. You're believing a prophecy. You're seeing that it seems to be consistent with your observations. This is more of it's true because it says it's true. And I love the game theory aspect of it, of when, well, that's exactly what we'd expect people to say. If it was a true prophecy, we'd expect them to say that it couldn't possibly be true.
Yeah, but it's like saying if you had to meet someone at the airport just with a green T-shirt on, then that wouldn't be enough detail, because there'd be loads of that.
It might be enough, depending on which airport you're at.
But I mean, I understand what he's saying, and I would say that, loving money falls into the green shirt category.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So what I'm saying is...
And boastful, right? And proud and abusive. Is there anything in this list? Boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness. Apart from the decline in religion, are there any of those that wouldn't have applied at almost any other time in history?
Yeah, I understand your point, because I used to say the same thing. So
okay.
I agree with you. And let's take that as yes. But there's other stuff. So the blue jeans would be another prophecy. For example, an increase in earthquakes in the last days as well. So you couldn't just have that one. You would have to have all of them all at the same time.
The problem here's the problem with prophecy. First of all, it needs to be specific and answerable by a single instance. If it can be answerable at any time, in any way, in many different ways, it can't be prone to interpretation. It needs to be specific. If I go in and order a medium rare steak and they bring me a medium rare steak, the waiter isn't fulfilling prophecy. It can't be something that's public knowledge that people are working towards. Okay? And at the end of all of that, even if you and I were to agree, this passage in 2 Timothy is fulfilled prophecy, we still don't have evidence to conclude how this came to be prophesied and fulfilled. And while we can't get to that point, what you're talking about here is something that is utterly mundane and trivial.
I do have to say I expected a different quote.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of them that could have come up, and that was not what I expected.
Yeah, but the mundane, like Jesus' garments being cast lots for, that is mundane as well. But all of this is deliberately difficult. All of this is deliberately difficult proof, because God could easily, like he has
lots
in
for the clothes, we don't even know that occurred. I mean, that's a prediction of something that we can't even say actually happened.
Yeah, but it is mundane, and that's why.
Right, but I mean, you can't point to prophecies that are fulfilled by stories that we can't even confirm occurred in reality.
Yeah, see, the difference here is that you seem to be easily impressed by claims of prophecy, and I'm not.
Well, it's deliberately difficult.
What do you mean deliberately difficult? Do you mean that? Are you saying that God is intentionally making it difficult to accept?
No, not difficult to accept, but difficult to understand and to have as proof. So God could present.
I think it's difficult to accept things that you have difficulty understanding and that you have difficulty proving. It's fair to call that difficult to accept. right? I mean, if you can't understand something and you can't demonstrate it, that would be a hard thing to accept.
Yeah, okay. Well, all right, let's take all of that as true. I actually agree with that. So, there, like, if, for example, a burning bush, or your hand, you hear a voice in the air, and then your hand turn into leprosy, and you put it back into your clothing, and it comes out, or you're something really, out there, then
Yeah.
that would be much better proof.
It would certainly be more impressive of an incident, but what would it be proof of? How did you rule out delusion, hallucinations? This is something that if it were to happen right now, like I hold my hand up and it's got leprosy, and then I put it in my clothes and pull it back out and it doesn't, and I claim then that I just cured my own leprosy. Would that be enough for you to believe that I'm supernatural and a god?
Actually, no, I cured his leprosy and I'm supernatural and I'm a god.
Okay,
He's
well,
lying.
there's better ones for the future. So as time goes
hang on. Better ones for the future. This is where I have to draw the line. Now that we've talked through a million different little topics, now you're saying there are better prophecies for the future. Then call me in the future when they come true and we can discuss those. But if you're saying that you believe now based on future, I'm going to have to just call bullshit.
All right. Well, I appreciate what you're saying. So I'll tell you the ones that are happening as we speak that perhaps you've not heard of before, which is that God is going to destroy Christendom and all religions, and he's going to use the United Nations.
So, John, we're done. John, I apologize. We're done. I've got another caller on line 2 there, Emeka in Nigeria, who we'd like to talk to before we close out the show. I'm not interested in conspiracy theories and future predictions. When that stuff comes through, you might then maybe have a justification for believing, but to say that you're somehow justified now based on what you presented or what might happen in the future is bollocks.
Yeah, but they are also future predictions.
Okay, call us in the future when they come true, and we'll tell you why we don't agree with them then.
Yeah, all right then.
Cheers, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to talk to you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You too.
I didn't want to drag on John's call, but I do want to say that when I initiated I want to hear the prophecy, what I did say was, give me your best, the best shot, the one that was most amazing, the one that floored you. And that was the opportunity to give me whatever one was to him the most amazing prophecy.
And while they're getting the next caller on, this is something that is kind of bugged me. Jeff D started this when he was on, when it was like, just give me your best argument. Why should we slug through, your worst and we get to the best? We've got the other caller. Emeka, are you there? Is it Emeka?
Yeah, Emeka.
Emeka. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So what was your question?
Yeah, I'm a Christian and I don't understand what this atheism is all about. So I want to know what it's all about. And
Okay.
From the little I know about atheism, you don't believe there is a supreme being.
Right.
So if you don't believe there is a supreme being, then what do you believe in?
Well, pretty much everything everybody else believes in. I believe in the natural world. I believe that I exist. I believe in myself. I believe in other human beings. Everything that can be demonstrated reasonably. It's bizarre to say, if you don't believe in God, what do you believe in? Because that's like saying, if you don't like ham sandwiches, what do you like? Well, there's lots of things that you might like, but that question would never occur to you. So I don't believe in a God. I don't believe in anything supernatural, but I believe in the world I experience. I'm kind of forced to.
But I should add that atheism is specific to the God claim. So you can still be an atheist who doesn't believe that a God exists, but believe in other supernatural things. There are some people like that.
Yeah, they're just not particularly good skeptics.
Okay. Then if you don't believe in supernatural being or supreme being, if you don't believe in God, then how do you think you came about?
My parents had sex.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I
We
can
can
hear
hear you, yes.
Yeah. Did you hear my answer?
Not really.
I exist because my parents had sexual intercourse and my mother got pregnant and then gave birth to me.
Yeah, but somebody brought about the whole existence of human being.
How do you know it's a somebody and not a something?
Okay, what thing do you think brought about it?
Well, let's say for a second, let's just pretend that we have no explanation at all, and that our answer is we don't know.
Yes.
Okay, so there's this big mystery. Hey, why is there something rather than nothing? Why does the universe exist? And my answer could be, oh, it's natural, and we have these natural understandings. Or my answer could be, I don't have an explanation, but you think you have an explanation, and I don't accept it. Why should I accept it?
Because the Bible says it all.
Okay, why should I care what the Bible says?
Because it's the word of God, it's the truth.
How do you know it's the Word of God and that it's true? Because those are not necessarily one and the same.
It's a book inspired by God, even though God didn't write it himself, but he inspired those that wrote it.
How do you know that?
From the book itself, when
Okay.
you read it.
So you're using the book to prove the book. So if I gave you a book that said this book, everything in this book is true, would you accept everything in the book?
It depends on what the book is talking about and the source of the book.
Okay, it depends on the source of the book, but you're accepting the source of the book based on the book. So if I give you a book that says it's written by God and that everything in it is true, would you accept that book?
If the book has been in existence and is being used by churches that promote and preach about God before my existence, then
Before your existence? So that's true of the Quran. Why aren't you a Muslim?
I don't have anything against the Quran.
You don't. How
No.
can you be a Christian and not have anything against the Quran when it diminishes who Jesus is?
Well, everybody have their right to believe whatever they want to believe.
Oh, okay. Well, if beliefs are just something you do because you want to, then why are you worried about what we believe?
Well, I guess my question is, I still don't understand why you're not a Muslim.
Well, I'm not a Muslim. I wasn't born a Muslim. My parents were Christians, so I followed their footsteps.
But the Quran says it's from God and that it's true.
Yeah, the Quran. If you read the Bible well, you will know everything came out from Abraham.
Well,
The Muslims
Abrahamic
are from Ishmael.
The Abrahamic religions, everything stems from Abraham, but there are other religions. There's Hinduism, which is potentially older, that talks about their gods.
Yes, but in terms of Christianity and Islam, it's from Abraham, Ishmael.
I know Isaac and Ishmael. I'm aware of the delineation between what they point to as their origins.
But are we saying here that any old book that says that it's true and that God inspired it, as long as people preach it, it is true and it is from God?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's what you said.
No.
So okay,
No.
so why then do you believe?
Why?
Well, yeah, because when I asked you before why you believed, you said it was because of the Bible, and that
Yeah,
because the Bible was the Word of
Bible.
God, and because you know the Bible is the Word of God because the Bible says so. So
Yes.
now we've ruled out that entire argument. So why do you believe?
That's the book for the church. The Bible is a book used of the church.
I know I was a fundamentalist Christian. I was a Christian for more than 25 years. I'm familiar with the fact that the Bible is the book of the church that you accept. I'm asking, why is that the church that you accept?
Well, I guess that's what we're meant to believe.
You're made to believe it.
Believe, and because we're supposed to believe. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure out why you believe, and your answer was either the Bible or it's what you're made to believe. Let me try a different question. Why should Tracie believe what you believe?
If what I believe is truth, then she should believe is the truth.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah. If
And,
it's
and
true,
so
I
is
should
Tracie.
believe
If it's
it.
true, she should believe it. Now, how do we figure out whether or not it's true?
I can't hear you.
How do we
Hello?
figure out whether or not it's true?
Well, the content of the message. What does the message preach? What does it stand for?
Okay, but you could have, so what is it that you think is true about it that's important?
Well, the Bible talks about peace,
It also talks about war.
but the Bible talks about morality.
It also advocates slavery.
Not really.
Yeah,
Yes,
really.
really.
Exodus 21. I've got a whole video covering everything about slavery. It tells you who to enslave, how long you can enslave them, how you have to let your fellow Jews go after 6 years unless you trick them by giving them a family, that you can beat them as long as they don't. And that's not the only immoral thing.
Okay, okay. You know, the thing is, you know, the Bible. You said you were a Christian for a long period.
Yeah.
The Bible has the New Testament and the Old Testament.
Right.
And in the New Testament, all that was changed.
No, it wasn't.
No, after the coming of Christ.
No. The only time slavery is mentioned in the New Testament is in specific instructions for slaves to obey their masters. There's nothing in the New Testament that says slavery is no longer allowed. It says slaves
Yeah, but-
obey your masters.
Yeah, but it was not promoted in the New
Okay.
Testament like was promoted
So,
in the Old
do you think
Testament.
slavery is immoral?
Yes, I think it's.
Why? Your Bible doesn't. At no point does it say that slavery is immoral. It says the exact opposite. If you were God and you were giving instructions to people, and you as God knew that slavery was immoral, would you write down slavery is immoral, don't own people as property? Or would you write down, you can go ahead and have slaves as long as you do this and this, and you can beat them as long as they don't die? Which of those two would you do if you were God?
Don't keep no slave.
Okay, so you think that God thinks slavery is immoral, and if God actually wrote the book, he would have said, don't keep slaves. But that's not what happened, is it? So clearly the Bible's not the word of God, and it's not true and not worthy of belief.
Well, I want to give Emeka some points there for saying I would write "don't own slaves."
Well,
I mean-
my biggest
No, I'm
problem is
not-
that I can hear him laughing in the background, so I'm having a hard time taking him
sometimes people have
seriously.
nervous laughter.
I know,
but I'm just saying that if if you sincerely can come right out and say after just a moment of thought, I would say don't own slaves.
Yeah,
That is more than a lot of Christians can say.
yeah, a lot of them just make excuses for why it's in there.
So you get some points for that one.
But thanks a lot for the call. I appreciate it. Basically, the answer to your original question is atheists don't believe in a God, and that's pretty much it. Everything else is up for grabs discussion-wise with regard to the atheist label. But we're also skeptics and humanists, and so there are a number of other things that we care about. But the one thing I care about is that if I'm going to believe something, I'd like it to be true, and I'd like to have good reasons to think
Yeah.
it's true.
Okay.
The amount of time that an idea has been around, the number of people who support it, the number of books that it's in, what those books have to say, none of those things, the sincerity of their belief, none of those things in any way tell you how likely something is to be true. The fact that an idea is cherished only shows you that it's cherished. It doesn't show you whether or not it's true, and it doesn't show you whether or not it's a good idea. And that's what I care about. And as soon as somebody can show me a God that is real, exists in some fashion, that we can demonstrate this, and is good, I'm on board with believing in it, and I still wouldn't worship it, because I'm convinced that no being worthy of worship would ever demand or expect it, and any being worth being called a God would realize this. But on that note, I think we're a little over, and we're going to close it out. My apologies to the people that are still waiting. We'll be back again next week, and I don't know who's on. I may or may not be on.
I don't really look at the schedule except for when I need to be here.
If you don't look at the schedule, how do you know when you're going to be here?
I said except for when I need to be here.
But how would you know to look at it?
Well, I'm not looking at other people's dates. I'm just like, where's my name on this list? This is where I need to be.
See, there you
Okay.
go. You had me in argument mode. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back again next week, and we'll look forward to talking to you then. Bye-bye.